Welcome everybody to this evening's meeting, which is hosted by Manchester TUC, which is like the umbrella body for unions in the city. So the point of tonight's meeting really is to get some information out more widely about what's happening with the dispute at CHEP in Trafford Park, get some discussion about what's happening and how people can support and help them get a good win as quickly as possible. So our four speakers, I'll just explain who they are up front. We've got Gary Walker, who's one of the strikers from CHEP in Trafford Park, who's going to explain the bones of what's going on with the dispute, I'm sure, and what that's about and how that's going. We're really pleased to have James Coffield, who's the GMB rep from the CHEP plant in Pontefract, has come to show some support as well. So welcome to James. And I can see we've also got Rebecca Long-Bailey, one of the local MPs, who's joined us as well. And then finally, we'll wrap up with Ian McCluskey, who's the Unite officer that's covering the CHEP workplace in Trafford Park. So we should get, I think, quite a good overview of what's happening and what people are doing around the dispute from those speakers this evening. So first of all, I'd like to hand over to Gary.
Yeah, hi everyone. We're coming up to the 6th week of our industrial action now. We've been outside on the gate. Each shift's been out pretty much 5 days a week, really. So we basically got to this point. It's been a long drawn out process. It's the culmination of years really of what we consider unsatisfactory pay offers, which has led us to the point where enough's enough, and we've had to take the action that we've taken, and basically the company are just unwilling to play ball really. They've come forward now with a slightly amended offer, but like I said, when I say slightly, it literally is slightly, and the lads are just not willing to. They're not willing to move on it. So we're just basically at a standstill now. Not really done anything like this before, as you can probably tell. So I'm a little bit short for words, really.
That's great, Gary. I'm sure as people go on, people are going to ask questions and so on. But everyone's here to support you.
Yeah,
what you're doing, you're standing up. Loads of people are facing a cost of living crisis and want to see a fight back over pay, and that's what you're doing. So everyone's here. You can see there's lots of applause. I can see Ian's popped his hand up, so I'm going to suggest we bring Ian next, who can probably add a little bit about the dispute as well.
Yeah, it's a long story, but basically I've been attached to this workplace for 4 years, and it's been a struggle each year. And these lads have been battered year in, year out with derisory pay awards, often 1.5%, like last year, and even slightly better ones have been backed up with massive hikes in productivity. But when I put the pay claim in, and this is the incredible thing that we have now in Unite, the pay claim generator, we're hooked into 25,000 workplaces. Wherever we have Unite members, we're hooked into Companies House. And incredibly, there's a section in it called the ability to pay section. And this is their figures that they post to Companies House. The difference between the 2019 to 2020 accounts, because we haven't got 21 yet, went up by 173% per employee. The pre-tax profit went from about 29,000 to about 121, I think it was, per employee. 173%. Their ability to pay is not disputed, and the fact that they have boomed throughout the pandemic isn't either. I mean, the interesting thing for me, nearly 4 years ago, pallet repairers. Yeah, I'd probably never considered pallet repairers in all my life. You just expect them to turn up. And of course, without them, nothing gets moved, or pretty much nothing gets moved.
Yeah, can I just come in on that, Ian, a second there, mate? So we did the pay talks last year, and obviously we was in uncertain times with the pandemic and stuff like that, and the company played on that massively, and they used that as a bit of a stick to beat us with the uncertain times and what we just basically didn't know how we was going to come through it. It almost felt like you felt not guilty, but you almost felt like they were using it because, you know, you didn't know what risk the company was at going forward and stuff like that. Now they kept banging the drum about us being key workers and that we was keeping the supply chain going. And like I said, they was worried about the things going forward, but then they've come through it. But not only have they come through it, and they've soared through it. They've done better through the pandemic than they've ever done before, and then they've come back. They basically dangled the carrot that if we could get through it, there'd be something there better. And they've come back and they've treated us basically with what we consider a derisory offer. So we don't feel like we've been treated with the respect that we deserve through, like I said, working right the way through a pandemic. Like Ian said about the pallets, people just expect them to just turn up, but there's a lot that goes into it. And it's a key part. We are a key part of the supply chain, keeping things moving.
So basically, I mean, the instructor thing, the great thing about the pipeline generator is that we can cater, you know, we move our expectations because we've got all their figures. But this is the most shocking example of, remember, these workers were working long hours with masks on throughout the pandemic as key workers. And they're sat on a pot of gold that isn't disputed. And now we get offered 2%, which isn't going to be backdated to the anniversary date of the 1st of July. Although the slight amendment that Gary alluded to was they will move forward the anniversary date and promise us 4% in March. So that took us about 3 minutes to reject. So it's the amazing thing with this company is, despite all of their wealth, they are genuinely flabbergasted that these workers don't see the merit in their offer, despite, I mean, back in, was it August or July, when we actually put the claim together, they'd have got away with this with 3%, because the workers would have seen that as a sea change from what they normally get. But clearly, you know, the economy has changed, and we all are aware of, you know, the inflationary upturn massively, and the cost of living crisis that we're in. So for that, it's a completely intransigent position where they are staggered and we're left with nowhere else to go. But I have never, you know, considering these lads had no experience, I mean, they had no confidence over the last few years to take this action. It's taken us this long to get it. They've had no experience in it, but by God, have they picked it up in terms of turning wagons around, the actual way they built the picket. I mean, it gets a life of its own, but I've never been proud of stood on a picket line in all my life. And it's as straightforward as that, really. The company have got a big, massive pot of money and can't and don't want to share. I mean, even the 5% backdated to the 1st of July, which is what we're demanding, I personally don't think it's enough. But of course, you know, I do what I'm told. So it's not as if, people have to remember, we're anything but being unreasonable. It's completely fair what we're asking for, and that, you know, that's why we're here. But nobody's breaking. We're prepared to go through the 12 weeks. We're you know, discussing our escalation plans. You know, hopefully James, when he speaks, we're looking for help from other sites as well. But we're here. We're ready for the long battle, and And I don't think the lads, they should be very proud of themselves, and I don't think they had any alternative on this occasion.
So our final speaker before we open up to questions and discussion, really pleased to have Rebecca Long-Bailey, one of the local MPs, who I know has already been down to the picket line. So if you'd like to say a few words, Rebecca.
Well, thanks, Ian, and thanks for inviting me to speak and to speak after the brilliant speakers that we've had so far already. I just want to show my solidarity, really. You've heard from everybody that the dispute is really a result of the company refusing to improve on a derisory pay offer 2%. And that's a substantial real terms pay cut when you look at the rate of inflation at the moment, which I think is around 7.1%, and it's set to get worse because we're in a cost of living catastrophe at the moment. And all these workers are asking for, they're not even asking for an inflationary pay increase, they're asking for 5%. It's really not going to cost the earth. And as you've heard from Ian, CHEP is a really profitable company, and that's fantastic that they're doing so well, that they're enjoying a boom time and making substantial profits. And when you look at the company house accounts, like Ian said, and you see that the profits have increased by 173%, you have to start asking questions about whether this is a company that's operating morally or not. Now, this is about what's morally fair. It's about making sure that when a company does well, it pays its employees as well as it can. But it goes beyond that in this case, I think, because CHEP workers were key workers in those early days of the pandemic, when a lot of people had the call to work from home and they could isolate from the rest of the world. CHEP workers couldn't do that. They were going into the workplace, probably frightened out of their tiny minds about the risks that they were putting themselves under and that they were putting their families through, because none of us knew how serious this was in those early days. There was no health and safety advice, but these workers were told, you've got to keep the country moving. People still need food. They still need all of these supplies, and they didn't question it. They got on with it. And when we were out on our doorsteps clapping for everybody, for all the key workers, we were clapping CHEP workers, as well as everyone else who works in health and social care and supermarkets. And we all wanted to thank them for what they did, because we wouldn't have got our shopping from the supermarket if it wasn't for these workers at CHEP. So for them to be treated in this way, when it's a company that hasn't suffered in the pandemic, quite the opposite, they've done really, really well. It's absolutely abominable that they're getting this derisory pay offer. So I think MPs like myself, and I know Kate Green, who's the MP for the area, are fully in support of the campaign. We want you to keep going. I know it's hard, and I was only down on the picket line for 10 minutes and it was freezing. So I can't imagine what it's like standing there day after day after day, hoping that today is actually going to be the day that the company sees its sense and actually makes you the offer that you deserve. But you've gone this far, you've got to keep going, because everyone's watching. And if it works for CHEP, there'll be other workplaces all over the country that'll think, hang on, we're working really hard here and the company's doing really well. We deserve more. And that's what trade unionism is about. And the other important thing that I just wanted to mention before I stop ranting, basically, is that it's important to remember that any worker in a workplace, they don't take strike action lightly. It's only when the situation is so severe or they feel so demoralised that they feel forced to go to those lengths to try and demand better terms and conditions or better pay. And in trade union workplaces where you've got a company that offers a bit of give and take, in the good times they get paid more, that means you've got a happy workforce. And it means that in the event that anything terrible happened to the company, those workers will remember that they were treated well. And they'll offer flexibility. They might offer to work less hours or for less pay until the company gets into good times again. But if you treat your workforce badly, it damages the company overall. And when you look at the economic evidence all over the world, in workplaces where trade unions do well and they manage to get good pay deals for their workers, productivity is up, guaranteed. In workplaces where the workers are treated badly, trade unions are treated with disrespect, productivity suffers. So this is about CHEP doing well, in as much as it's about the employees getting the pay that they deserve. So I hope that the company sees sense, and anything that I can do, please just ask anytime. And I know that you've got huge support. When I was on the picket line, there were people beeping left, right and centre, and I know that the majority of lorries aren't crossing the picket line, which is fantastic to see. So you can see how much public support there is. So keep going, and solidarity. I'm sorry, I've got to shoot off in a few minutes because we've got to go and get the train, otherwise I'll never get out of London and that'll make me really angry. So if I have to shoot off, then that's where I've gone.
Okay, well, thanks to Rebecca, and thanks to all 4 of our fantastic speakers for kicking this off. And just really to echo what Rebecca was saying there, you know, with inflation as high as it is, the issue of pay is becoming an income more generally is becoming an issue for every working class person. And that means that when people see you putting up a fight, you're putting up a fight for all of us, because we know that if a company which is loaded as CHEP can get away with holding down your pay, every other employer is going to be looking at doing the same. And if you manage to win, it sends a signal, gives people hope, doesn't it, that they can fight for better pay as well. So you're doing us a great favour, and that's one of the reasons I think why the solidarity is so fantastic. I was lucky enough yesterday, and I know there's quite a few people in this meeting who were lucky enough to be at the protest in support of Tracy Scholes yesterday, the bus driver at the Queen's Road depot, sacked for being too short after successfully doing the job for 34 years. And it was a delight to see quite a number of the CHEP workers up supporting Tracy, and it's that solidarity, isn't it, that makes us strong as a movement when we back each other up.
Thanks very much, Ian, and a very encouraging meeting already tonight with 3 good speakers. I wasn't able to go to the picket line over Christmas, but I went a couple of days ago on Monday night, and I've got to say I was very impressed with the confidence of the lads that I met. Their resilience, determination to stick it out. There's no holds barred. But also, Gary came back from a meeting with the RMT, and I had a chance to talk to him. And it's clear that there's some very serious strategic thinking going on behind this dispute in terms of winning it this time, but also future disputes. I'd just like to make 2 points. One of which, in a sense, is a little bit of a warning. Gary said that we're 6 or 7 weeks in now, and I followed the Queen's Road dispute quite closely a year ago, and you know, went on the picket line several times there. And one of the things that struck me is there's a tendency in a dispute when you get about 6 or 7 weeks in that, you know, it doesn't seem as if anything's happening. Now, I'm not, the will of the workers isn't going to change, but this 12-week deadline is coming into sight now, and it was definitely a factor. I think at Queen's Road, the union had reballoted, but it was complicated, it was a little bit late, and so on. And I think if it's necessary to reballot, to extend the dispute beyond 12 weeks, we need to be planning for that now. I understand from talking to Gary, it may be a question of picking a dispute on a related but separate issue. That may be a legal requirement. I don't know. I don't know enough about the law. But my concern is that we are prepared if the workers, as I'm sure they will want to, need to go beyond the 12 weeks, that they're ready and legal and able to do so. But the other thing I wanted to make, which is a positive one, I think, I'm really pleased to see that James is with us tonight. I'm from Leeds originally. It's nice to see the Yorkshire lads coming on stream. And my point is this, that if Unite organise at Manchester and GMB organise at Pontefract, what all of us have to do is to make sure that that is not a barrier to future action. And it seems to me, James hinted at this.
Can you wind up, please, Paul?
I will do. Shop Stewards Committee, a Shop Stewards Committee for CHEP across these 2 sites, and there's plenty others, I believe, Birmingham and Bristol. And the difference in unions must not be a barrier. I'm old enough to remember the shipbuilding industry when there was one in Britain. And you had members of all sorts of different unions, sheet metal workers, boiler makers, engineers, steel erectors.
Come on, Paul.
But they all work together in a shop stewards committee. That would be great to see that happen. Thanks, comrade.
Oh, hi, yes, solidarity to everybody, and I hope to be down there quite soon. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, really, out of interest, was all the workforce behind the strike, or have you got people working at CHEPs who are, not in the union? So we had a few problems like that down at Queen's Road last year. Fortunately, we're in the minority. Just out of interest, thought I'd ask.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, my name's Sarah. I'm in PCS Union. I'm a branch secretary of a public sector workplace in Manchester, and I'm on the National Executive Committee. And I mean, it's incredible, really, to think of the storm that CHEP workers have been through during COVID as key workers. And we've all been through that pandemic after all, and it's still not over. And now the RPI inflation rate is 7.1%. And that's the one that matters because it contains housing costs and rent. We know energy costs are likely to double. The news is trailing when the cap comes off in April, and there's a national insurance hike happening in April as well. So basically, we're all getting pay cuts, and any rise under 7.1 is going to be a pay cut. And I imagine everyone here is in the same boat as me. In my workplace, we haven't had an above inflation pay rise in 10 years. So that's, we've had 10 years of pay cuts. And this is why it is so brilliant to see CHEP workers leading the way like this with an all-out strike. And I think we need more national strikes and many more workplaces out. And my union, PCS, as we're the civil service union, public sector government departments, all of those things we organise, as well as some commercial parts of the outsourced workers as well in government bodies. And we're starting a consultative ballot on the 14th of February, and that will run to the 21st. And we are trying to learn from UCU, particularly in Manchester, where in the universities, they didn't get over the legal threshold for the ballot 3 times, and then they got well over 60% of the vote out. And we're going to learn from this, and they've called it spidering and stuff. I've been taking lessons from them about how to get that vote out, and I think we need to demand more. So I'm going to be arguing in PCS that we need to ask for at least 10%, because with RPI, that's actually only 2.9% above inflation. And we all work hard, we all deserve more. So solidarity to CHEP. And it's just so great to have somebody have the courage of their convictions and come out on all-out strike. Solidarity.
I've posted in the chat already some details about some practical things people can do to support CHEP. So there's an email address for Ian for messages of solidarity. There's where people can send donations. And then Friday morning, we're trying to have a little bit of a rally down on the picket line at 7:30 in the morning. And it'd be great if as many people as possible could be there, because we've got Gary here tonight, but it'd be great if more of the CHEP workers could see the amount of solidarity and support that there is across the city. So if you can be there, if you can bring friends and workmates and people from your organisations, that will be fantastic. Sarah also raised the issue about the fuel price hike, which we're expecting to be announced on the 7th of February. And Rebecca, referred to the cost of living catastrophe that we face as well. Manchester Trades Council, together with the People's Assembly, has called a demonstration for Saturday, the 12th of February, so the Saturday after the Ofgem announcement of the fuel price increase, around capping fuel bills, but also more generally about tackling the cost of living crisis. And again, it'd be great if people could support that, organisations could support that. I don't know if you're available to speak at it, Rebecca, but we'd love to have you at that as well. Those are all things that people can get involved in.
Yeah, just to briefly answer some of them points. The situation with the ballot is well in hand. Whether we choose to reballot or not is still up for debate, and that's, I don't want to bore you with the complexities of that, but if we are to reballot, then we will have to send our notification of our intention to ballot next Friday on the 21st for it to be continuous on the 25th of February. Shop Stewards Committee, great idea, obviously. It's one step at a time with CHEP. We've just, although incredibly, they're called the Northwest One branch of Unite, which was a shock to me when I found out, but we're just forming the branch properly. We've got branch officials, and whilst I will support any Shop Stewards Committee and agree with all the points made by our colleague, you know, that's where it's a stepping stone at the minute. The point about who's working in there, yes, we have up to about 10 scabs in there, and that's what they are. We've got 70 lads on the gate. They are running a minuscule operation in there. I mean, one of our shifts, there isn't one forklift truck driver in there, so they can't function without forklift trucks. So the idea that we're not really hurting them is a fantasy. So yes, we're not 100%, but if we were to reballot, the mandate would increase. So I've got no issue there. We're doing really well. And in terms of going back to what Sarah said, obviously, yeah, you haven't had a pay rise for years. I'd definitely be going in at 10% with RPI at 7.1. Strangely enough, we went in at 5.8 when inflation was about 3.2. So you'd always kind of put a little bit on, don't you, to inflation. And they would have settled this in the summer for 3%. But I fully support what you're attempting to do. I only hope that the bargaining unit is manageable. I always worry with PCS national ballots that they're too big, and hence why you struggle to pass the thresholds. But you know, full support and solidarity in that direction too.
Just first of all, I want to thank Gary. He came along to our union branch meeting along with Andy, the Manchester South RMT, and it was a real shot in the arm to the branch. It's actually for the hour before Gary and Andy came to describe their strike appeal for support, we'd been having a whole discussion about how to deal with how the rail bosses have used COVID, the pay freezes that we face. And to be honest, there was an uncertainty in the meeting and a caution about the problems that we've faced in actually a growing number of ballots that are coming up. But you know what Gary and Andy did in describing the CHEP strike was a shot in the arm to the meeting. It was like some oxygen coming in to help us see that instead of looking to our problems from the past, that what they are doing is what is possible, and that's the road that we can all go on. We're trying to get together. You know, it's obviously difficult with shifts for people to come down on Friday morning to the join the rally, and the branch made a donation. But I guess what I really learned when Gary and Andy came to the meeting is how much these fights are not just about that they are about CHEP and the importance of the CHEP workers' fight and solidarity with that, but they're also about the future of the unions. Because I think there are right now 4 all-out strikes in this country: CHEP, B&Q workers in Worksop, the Scunthorpe scaffolders, and South Yorkshire bus drivers. And this is new, and the stakes are very high. And so the stakes for all of us in the unions are to gain solidarity for these strikes, tell people about them, and learn from them about what we can all do.
So on Saturday at 1 p.m, there's going to be a demonstration in St. Peter's Square against both the police bill and the Nationality and Borders bill. So these are really serious threats to people's rights, the right to protest and demonstrate and so on, and both racist pieces of legislation as well. We've got the first bus strike in Oldham. They're back out again on Tuesday the 18th, Thursday the 20th, Monday the 24th, and Wednesday the 26th of January. And their depot, if you're trying to get there, you'll find there's no buses. It's right next to the Mumps Metrolink stop, so it's fairly easy to get to if you are using public transport. And lastly, just to mention, we've got the annual general meeting of Manchester Trades Council, which is open to everybody to attend. Obviously, only delegates can vote, but that's 7 p.m. next Wednesday. We've got a stellar lineup for that. We've got Sharon Graham, the Unite General Secretary, Jay McKenna, who's the Regional Secretary for the North West TUC, Alex Gordon, the RMT President, and Gary back again to give us an update on the CHEP strike as well.
Yeah, it was just a little point picking up off what Peter said then, and it's just sort of something that was playing on my mind a little bit, just to try and get the point across that where we'd actually come from to where we are now. I mean, I've got 10 years experience with CHEP. I was there for 3 years in my early 20s, then I sort of went away and then I came back. I've been back there 7 years now. And from where we've got to in the last 3 years, to see where we've come from, the sea change is absolutely, it's night and day. The confidence of the lads 3 years ago, it was shot to pieces, absolutely shot. We didn't have reps that was representative of us. We was divided. We was divided across 3 different shifts. We had 3 reps operating as 3 reps, not as a union. And all that knitting together that needs to be done across 3 shifts was very, very tricky. And it took massive effort from different lads, influential lads, Ian himself, coming together. And if you'd have asked me 3 years ago, would we be at this point now? I'd have said no, because the confidence just wasn't there. But if you actually see that picket now, and like, you know, Paul's been down, Peter's been down, and you see the confidence in the lads, people you just wouldn't have expected, that have actually realised now that they've actually got a voice and that they can do something about it. It's really heartwarming to see it, and that's just on a personal level, just to see these people, and also to see people that you don't work with on a daily basis. You've got FLT lads, they work out in the yard, you don't see them. You see them crossing over in the canteen for 20 minutes, 10 minutes. You might see them out in the changing rooms on the way out. You know, we're out there for 8 hours together, and you're getting to know people that and it's just so good to see that that camaraderie, and it's just flowing right through the depot. And obviously the management don't want that. They want divide and rule, don't they? So they don't want you coming across. And it's been designed like that. That's how it's been. And just to see that togetherness, and it's brilliant. It really is. So I just wanted to get that point across.
That was brilliant, Gary. The way that strikes change people is always amazing, isn't it? It gives people a sense of their own power and their own collectivity that we don't normally get. For anyone who hasn't been down to the picket, they're picketing 24 hours a day during the week, so it's really easy to find a time you can get there and pay them a visit and give them a bit of support.
Cheers. Thanks very much. Karen Reissmann from Greater Manchester Mental Health Unison branch. It's interesting because I've been down to the picket a few times, and I think it is quite palpable, that level of strength that people feel, and that togetherness and that solidarity that people have with each other on the picket line, and that determination to hold out, and the fact that they do a picket 24 hours a day and they stand there in the cold, and generally they're quite sort of good-natured about doing it, whereas I would definitely be quite miserable if I'm there for more than the hour that I stay, because it's not the best weather to be having strike action in. And I think it reflects the fact that there is a growing mood amongst workers about pay and about the unfairness and the disparities that are going on in the world we live in. It's not just over whether we could party in the last 2 years, where there's one rule for us and one rule for them, but there's been one rule for them over pay rises and one rule for us. So chief executives, managed to earn the average worker's wage in their companies by the 7th of January this year, which was 3 working days into the new year. And their wage rises have gone up and up and up through COVID. And yet for the majority of us, our wages have been going down for a long time. And even though we've been applauded as sort of, as key workers, as people who kept going, I work in the health service, and we couldn't have had more plaudits than it was possible to get. And yet that was never reflected when they gave us a 3% pay rise. And I think it does make people bitter, just like people are bitter on the CHEP picket line, because you slogged your guts out through all those months, and they have got the money and they're choosing not to do it. The same's true with us, and I think that bitterness was there. I went to the Oldham buses depot strike yesterday, and they're out on strike over pay as well, and they were fuming, absolutely fuming. And again, a big, solid, very loyal, very determined, very sort of angry picket line. And I think there is massive bitterness. We had a ballot in the health service and we got an 80% yes vote for strike action, which is the highest vote that we've ever had for strike action in the health service. Unfortunately, we didn't reach the threshold of 50%, and there's lots of reasons for that, which maybe I won't go into here. But I think that sort of, that it's an illustration of just how angry people are. And I think it's important that for those of us who aren't on strike yet over pay, that we do offer full solidarity to those people who are out on strike, because I think it helps to show people. We were supposed to have a proper discussion about it at our branch meeting yesterday, when management decided at one day's notice that they were pulling our facility time because of the crisis in the health service. So they haven't got time for us to meet as a trade union to look at how to keep people safe, but they have got time to do all the awful things that they want to do. So we weren't able to have the full branch meeting, but we did vote for another £500 to be donated to the strike fund, because I think it's important that that reflects the solidarity that health workers feel towards people who are striking over pay. But we know that if you win, that will help to create a bigger argument and a bigger sense that you can fight and you can do something about it. So it's not just about an act of generosity towards the CHEP workers, but it's knowing that that CHEP worker strike is important to a health worker, to a local council worker, to the Oldham bus worker, to any other factory or shop or worker in Britain today. If you win, it makes it easier for us to win. And I think inviting people to meetings to get a bit of a sense of the fact that it's possible to fight is important. Doing a little collection round work if you're in work is important. Getting a solidarity card. We're trying to get people to the solidarity rally on Friday, but there's a few of us that actually can't do Friday mornings for childcare reasons, so we will probably come down at another time because of that, so we send our apologies. But I do think there is a growing mood around pay. They call it cost of living. It isn't the cost of living, it's the cost of living under a Tory government and a capitalist system that consistently rips us off. It doesn't cost any more to live this year than it did last year. It's about them trying to make us pay for the crisis that they want. And you're 100% right to go on strike. You have the support of people, and you can see that on the picket line where people bit their horns when they go past. And we need to make sure that you stay out until you win, and that we force CHEP to give you the pay rise that you deserve.
Thanks, Karen. And I think, a number of the contributions have really illustrated how solidarity is not just about everybody supporting the people who are on strike. It strengthens the giver as well as the receiver, because it's about educating workers where you are about the issues and about the fact that it's possible to fight back, and about giving people some hope and some inspiration. And that's what every strike does, where we can organise solidarity for it.
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanted to thank the strikers at CHEP for the example they're setting. I've been to the picket line a couple of times, and it really is very, very encouraging, and especially Gary's description now of what happens when you go on strike, the camaraderie, and how you get. I mean, I've had this experience in so many workplaces where the bosses find all these ways to split us up, but what happens when you go on strike? It's not in their control. It's not in their hands anymore. It's in our hands. And I think, you know, I work in a meat factory in Ashton. I work at it's called Pilgrims now. Many people know it as Tulip. I'm a member of the community union there. And we've twice now this year we voted down a contract that wasn't even a 2% pay rise, when, you know, as people have been describing the way prices have been going up. And at the same time, you know, we're doing 3,000 pigs a day, and they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And they you know, and people's hands are aching from doing those bigger pigs, and yet there's no compensation for it. So you know, there were solid votes against those pay offers, but then we didn't have the confidence that you did that to then take the next step. And that's something, you know, when we, you know, some of us tried to organize some support for your strike and at least, you know, come to your picket line and learn from it, we're actually fighting for ourselves. So I think you're setting a really good example there. This thing about it's very important that this is happening at the same time as these other fights, including the defense of Tracy Scholes against the sacking, which, I mean, this is a real outrage, and a lot of, you know, millions of workers up and down the country are talking about this now because it's been on the news and things. But also the scaffolders strike in Scunthorpe, where they had this reballoting issue, and I just saw that they've balloted. It was 83% in favor of continuing the strike beyond the 12 weeks, and they obviously turned it, what was supposed to be a bit of an obstacle for them, they've turned it into a mobilization, really, to continue their strike and show the bosses how firm they are. So even when they try to throw obstacles at us, there are ways that we can, as a union, you know, through the way that you've, you know, the experience that you've been getting, both in organizing a strike and a union branch, all these obstacles will figure ways to overcome them, and especially the more solidarity that the rest of us can bring to your fight.
Yeah, Ed Garner, Manchester Trades Council, also PCS retired members and Salford Trades Council and a few other things. Yeah, it's so inspiring to see the strikers here and the efforts, and so important and inspiring to see other working class colleagues supporting. This is so important. I mean, the bottom line is not asking for no favours here, just asking for decent days' pay. And, you know, people are entitled to this, you know, to go to work with decent income, dignity, safety, and the rest. And this is it, you know, this should be the norm, not some, you know, favour and apologising for asking this kind of thing. So solidarity. And while I'm talking, Janet Newsom from Hazards made a point. She texted me and asked me to say solidarity from Janet and Hazard. She would be beaming in, but she's doing good work at Preston Trades Council tonight. Thanks.
I'd just like to offer a lot of support to the strike, and there's quite a few of us here, including yourself, Ian, who recognise that when you're on strike, there are certain things you can't do. And if you want to escalate, there's a lot of friends around. And during the bus drivers' strike, there was People's Assembly, Extinction Rebellion, Uniting the Community People, and others. But yeah, what I'm basically saying is, if you want to escalate, there's a group of people who'd be very happy to help.
It's outrageous that the law puts so many barriers in the way of workers doing that for themselves. But you know, when we don't feel confident to just defy the law, which is what I think we'd like to be doing, we still have to find ways around that, don't we?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank James for coming today. Obviously, we've spoke via WhatsApp before. There was certain aspects, the reason why some certain things happened within the changing over, because I was originally speaking with John and then James took over the role, and then it sort of lost a little bit of traction, and so we're obviously trying to rebuild that as well. So I just wanted to thank James for coming on tonight as well, and obviously I'll be in touch with him again a lot more going forward. With regards to tonight, I'd just like to thank everyone. It's the support. It's to be honest with you, it's absolutely blowing my mind. And you know, when you've never experienced anything like this, you don't realise what it actually entails. And then to see, you know, loads of people just coming down to the picket. You've got, like I said, trucks driving past beeping their horns. You've had, you know, I went and Peter invited us to his branch meeting. I went and attended that the other night. So it's completely just opened my mind, and it's just great that it's being put out there and it's being made so public. And I mean, I read an article a couple of years ago, and its headline was CHEP, the global giant nobody's heard of. Well, they're getting heard of now, and it's not being painted in a very good light. So, you know, there's nothing like a bit of bad publicity to wake them up. So the more messages that are getting spread by yourselves and, you know, through social media, in whatever avenues, just keep it up. And from all my lads, you know, and I'll obviously be reporting back tonight about tonight. Just thanks a lot.
Well, thanks to you, Gary, and to all the strikers, because as so many people have said, you're an inspiration, and you know, your fight is our fight.
Okay, listen, I echo everything Gary said. Obviously, it is wonderful to watch these members and the light bulb moments for them. As I say, you know, they haven't got the experience, and there's people on this picket line who've been marching around miserable in the workplace for years. You want to see them now. They're wide-eyed and involved. And this is what CHEP fear most. This isn't just about pay. They've got pockets of money. They're not interested in that. They don't want us to have a voice in the workplace when we go back in, when we have a fully functioning branch and, you know, a rep on each shift that will get the adequate training. That's what CHEP fear. This would amount to about £100,000, the difference in what they're offering and what we demand. So money's irrelevant, but that's what they really fear. And as Gary said, these people on different shifts, there's friendships being formed here. And especially Gary's great words there about everyone here. And, you know, the realisation that the trade union is bigger than just our, you know, our individual workplaces. Kevin, I thank you a great deal. It's very kind of you, you know, a second donation. I've got another £1,000 since I've been on the call. So we're not going to be starved back to work. Paul, you know, I will be on to you, because next week, I mean, there's already plans to escalate in different areas. I don't want to go into them too much at the minute, but more will come out next week, and we will need support of the community and all the other people that you suggest. In terms of what James said, it's great that we've now finally linked up. CHEP in Trafford Park is the headquarters for of UK and Ireland for CHEP in Trafford Park. So we've got by far the most density of members, you know, double what the rest of the country have put together. So there's certainly great opportunities for growth on the other sites, and the longer we hold hands, the more opportunities there will be for you there. And again, that will only, you know, it's like the boulder will start to push the other way. So I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to come and see you tonight. And it goes without saying that, you know, the hand of friendship comes back the other way if ever you need us to. So I'm very, very grateful for your time tonight, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Right, well, well done, everybody. Great meeting, and you know, let's just make sure we carry that forward to a quick and stunning victory. So hopefully see lots of you with lots of your friends on Friday morning. Thanks to everybody, particularly to our speakers, but to everyone who's taken part. Hope to see you on a picket line or a protest very soon indeed.